Good evening, everyone. I hope people are getting their power back, and welcome to the Scio Township Planning Commission meeting of February 27th, 2023. And if everyone will stand and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary Chang, please call roll.
Commissioner Moore,
Present.
Commissioner Reiser,
Present.
Commissioner Hyde, Commissioner Human,
Present.
Commissioner Chang, present, and Commissioner Culbertson.
Present. So Commissioner Sharma is not present this evening. He did notify us. All right, so adoption of the agenda. Is there anyone who would like
Move
to?
adoption of the agenda.
I would support.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted as posted. We move on to public comment, and this is a time for people that would like to address the Planning Commission on matters which are not a part of our public hearing. And tonight we do have a public hearing on Scio 1 LLC conditional use. So if any of our public online or present in the room would like to address the Planning Commission, I'll open the public comment at 7:01. All right, I don't see anyone here who wants to address public comment this evening. Is there anyone online?
There are a few folks online. There's 3 actually. And at this point, no one has their hand up.
All right, we'll wait for maybe 30 seconds just to give people a chance. No hands up? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
Move to close public comment.
Support.
Moved in support. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public comment is closed at 7:02. We'll move on to communications and correspondence. We did receive an email on a resident who called in, hoping that the Goodrich Theater could continue as a theater. Other than that, anyone else have any other correspondence? All right. And move on to our next agenda item, which are public hearings. And this evening, we have a public hearing on possible action of conditional use number 23002, Scio 1 LLC. And just so people are aware of sort of the order of the public hearings, typically we have the applicant come, sign in, present. We hear from our planning consultant. This one won't have any engineering feedback, so it'll just be our planning consultant. Then just clarification of facts. Then we open it up to our public in person and online. And after that, we close public comment, and then the Planning Commission deliberates. Because this is a public hearing, depending on the amount of comments and so forth, the Planning Commission may or may not take action on the item tonight. So with that, I'll declare our public hearing open at 7:04, and and then just so anyone addressing the Planning Commission is limited to 3 minutes, unless you're the applicant obviously has more than that. But if you're a member of the public, 3 minutes, except if you're a representative or a spokesperson of an organization, and then it's 5 minutes. So with that, welcome our applicants. Please come up, sign in under this public hearing, and look forward to your presentation.
So my name is Fermin Wong. I am an owner of an Arbor Indoor Golf, which is located in 300 Jackson Plaza. As we mentioned before, There's a few businesses in 300 Jackson Plaza, the Side One franchise that sells gardening equipment. There's an automotive place, there's a design place, there's a storage and moving place. But there's also on the entertainment side, we've been there. There was a prior business there called T-Box for the last 10, 15 years, I understand. Went out of play during COVID. We took over. Tennis place has been there for a long time. Peja has been one of the top 5 coaches in Michigan. They're playing tennis and moving into pickleball, as we mentioned too. And so what our hope is to bring that whole community into an entertainment community there in the middle of 300 Jackson Plaza. So we've been in business now for 3 years. Our customer base started from 0, even though there was a history there, but we've grown to 2,000 customers in 3 years. We have what we believe is a good footprint. We have good technology that people like for serious golfers as well as not so serious golfers. But serious golfers really like it. Is a brand new technology, and for those hoping to make improvements in golf, it's quite a tool, and that's why I think we're growing. Just on Monday we hit our 5th our 100 5-star review in Google, none other than 5 stars. So that we believe is a great accomplishment. There are several competitors in the area, but we believe we have an edge with their approach and our equipment. Like we told Mr. Reiser, we are looking for one of those quota licenses for liquor. As you know, liquor and golf kind of go hand in hand. That's what our competitors do as well. And we believe it will create even more business in the area, and it will mix well with pickleball, which is the hottest sport in the US these days. In terms of the planning, back several years ago, there was the second use for entertainment. Now we're looking for the use of a restaurant so we can serve a little bit of golf food, but primarily the liquor license.
Thank you. Any specific questions from the planning commission or facts? Yes, clarifications.
Yeah. And housed within your building is the golf as well as pickleball?
Yes. Almost next to each other, just separated by a sliver of area that we're planning to expand eventually too.
And is there another sport that's back there in your facility?
There's weightlifting in there too.
Question. Will the restaurant only be available to those that are also playing golf?
No,
Is it open to the public?
it's open to anybody, but I'm sure 90% of the usage will be. As a matter of fact, like I mentioned before, we're really good friends with Homes Campus, the ownership with Homes. And many of the clients eventually stop by and they say, we never knew you guys were here. We just want to, you guys are building a bar, that would be great. But we need to probably improve our signage. And I think that will do well for us.
Other questions?
Yeah, of course I do, I always do, but I'll yield to others who might have questions.
I did want to do a follow-up
Yes.
question, and that was, you said that it would be available to anyone. Do you mean the public driving down the street? Or are you talking about just within your building, or how would you plan to do it?
Both, really. I mean,
So an open bar to.
even though we really everything that is online, which is the primary place of advertising these days, is A2IG and our indoor goals. So I expect 90% plus will be the golfers or the pickleballers coming through. But yes, we would not close the doors. As a matter of fact, we're thinking on glass doors everywhere, glass doors, so they can see what's inside. We're planning to have a little hall with tables, kind of like Rapport, if you're familiar with Rapport on the other side of town. Kind of rustic, you know, bra houses type of long tables for them.
Do you have
Come on.
drawings of your plans, or is that to come?
We actually have plans. We absolutely have plans of everything, both.
Did you want to distribute those?
I did not know, but yes, I sent them to Laura and to Doug. But I do have a few copies.
Is this the one that's in the packet?
Sorry.
I'll just take a look and I'll, I can pass it around.
It's the same as, oh, no, this is,
This is the bar that was designed by the homes.
Chris,
Thank you. So where in the field is your facility? I'm looking at what was in the pack.
Yes, so our facility is suite
Your suite
299.
292.
Yes, and our base running along this way. And what I send you is the bar that will be located kind of, you see that door? That's that door.
What
on
door?
The top. I'm sorry, the door here is that door at the top. Okay, so if you will, if I may, the bar will be right here at the entrance. Very similar to what Homes Campus does today, kind of at the entrance. You come in, you order your drinks, and then you take a seat. In this case, you will take a seat or you go play golf.
So will the restaurant be in suite 292?
Yes, ma'am.
And in suite 292 is where the
The goal.
Kind of in this area.
A2IG as well as pickleball?
Pickleball is over here, yes. And so
Oh, I see.
that's, what we're negotiating is maybe an entrance. They have an area here where parents watch their kids play or.
are you looking at this? Okay.
Would really be nice if you had this projected and you were pointing.
One more.
And
No, no.
maybe,
Everyone.
maybe if Doug has this photo and could share the screen so that people out there in TV land could see it and we could see it here as well.
We're not looking at that.
No,
Yes, we are.
that's these. He's looking at these.
Oh, okay, I just don't see the side print.
Great,
Yeah, I think we're looking at the same thing.
Okay.
I'm looking at a paper, he's looking at it on a computer, and people who are following are looking at it,
Exactly right.
nothing.
What are the
So where
dimensions
is
of
your door
292?
on here?
292 is roughly 12,000 square feet and is roughly, I want to say, about one.
Doug, is that possible or no?
I don't have that.
Okay, okay,
I can't.
okay.
Oh,
however,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
So this door is
Yeah,
here,
this door is actually upside down, but that door is that door there.
right
So the
here,
bar will be right here as you enter.
when you first come
And then
in.
the bays are along this line. And here's the weightlifting, and here's what we're planning to join with the.
So the bar is here.
Yeah.
And what's right here?
There's
I know your
the
frustration with
weightlifting
that.
equipment.
No, I'm just gonna,
Down on the line?
That is Doug.
Oh,
So what he was. Is it Mr. Wong?
yes.
Mr. Wong was.
oh no, I have it right here.
Was saying that this is the
If you
door.
can zoom into 292.
right here, that's that door.
Mhm.
And when you come in, the bar will be across like here and then the other
Yeah.
weightlifting, et cetera.
And if
I'm
I
not sure.
yep, so it's right in here.
Yeah, and if I
There's
may.
interest. The bar is here. and then
That's the
also
door,
there's-
so the check-in will be right here and the dispensing. will be right there.
So the bars.
Very
So this is the
similar
main
setup.
entrance,
Right, whoops, right, where it's right there.
Down
They
there,
just come
That's
in,
the
check
store
in
here.
and come out. And
you come in here, the bar is
Bar,
right
right
here.
in.
so, yeah,
And then
kind of
all-
upside down
Wait,
versus that,
okay.
versus that view. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the benefit of anyone watching, and we are looking, I believe, to be at page 16 of our packet. Is that correct? So while we can't display it, if you go to sciotownship.org, if you go to planning commission, if you look at today's packet, if you go to page 16, you'll be able to follow along to some degree.
And it's suite 292. It wasn't identified. I didn't see it.
It's in the drawing.
Yeah.
Packet.
Okay,
I didn't
do you
time
have
to correct.
an idea of your seating capacity or the total square footage that'll be devoted to the bar and the seating?
So our seating capacity will be around, let's call it around 40 people. Just south of 40 people.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm just a friend, but do you mean for the bar or for the entire golf?
For the entire area,
Yeah, for the restaurant and the bar.
the restaurant and the bar, I'd say we'll have about 25 people for the base. We have another 10 people in the bar. And the plan eventually is to have still more tables on the southeast side of 290. Probably at least 4 of those long warehouse tables, if you will.
All in your suite though.
Yes.
When it's my turn, I want to ask. the
Go
question.
ahead.
So I see suite, I see STE 292, which I assume is your suite, correct?
Yes,
But then to the left of that, I see court 2 and court 3.
That's right.
Those are not inside that suite.
No, that's the Ann Arbor Tennis Academy.
Okay. And how many tennis courts is that a separate entity?
That is a separate entity.
That's not you.
That's not us, but we're hoping to work together with those pickleballers. Those 2 tennis courts convert into 4 pickleball places.
Okay, so it's 2 tennis courts or 4 pickleball, depending what they have going on at the time, correct?
Yes.
That's a different
That's a
entity.
different entity than us.
And
We're only 292.
you're 292, and in 292 is some sort of indoor golf, right?
Yes.
And then this soon to be the restaurant. And to the right of you, or that would be to the north of you, what is in that space?
That is side 1.
That's the
gardening.
sprinkler supply store.
Correct.
Got it, okay. Gardening, okay.
And where is that? On the other side of 292?
On the other side
To
of the
north, to
tennis.
the right.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Thank you
I don't
for
know,
your
is-
patience.
Is Mr. LeBlanc gonna give a presentation? Because I probably.
We're just
these are
doing
more-
factual questions of the applicant at this point.
So I did notice then that there's a maximum of 62 occupants, I believe, that was approved as part of the conditional use permit. You're still capping it at 62? You're not looking at raising that?
I don't think we need right now. No.
Okay. And then it also it stated the hours of operation.
The hours of operation are from 9 to 11.
In the summer.
On a daily, on the summer, the goal, we haven't done it yet, is for this year, we're looking into junior camps in the morning.
So we have, I'm just kind of scrolling down to what the hours were proposed during certain months and what, if you're going to have summer, if we need to adjust those.
Because sometimes in the summer, bars are open past 11 at night.
Ah,
And now's the time to think of that.
Yep.
Before you get the tickets at 11:01.
I see. Understand the question then.
And I'm not saying you're gonna get tickets, but I'm saying now's the time to think of what your needs might be if you have summer outdoor dining and tennis goes till, I don't know, how long do people golf and tennis until?
So I'm looking at the original.
And 11.
Yeah, hang on, let's, yeah,
I'm
as
looking at
he's.
the original conditional use approval. Says that the hours of operation are between 6 AM and 11 PM. On page 10.
I thought that was the original approval, but we run only from 9 to 11.
So that gives you some morning
Yeah.
time for camps if you want. All right,
Yeah, I
any
don't-
other, we're trying to just clarify facts at this point. Okay, and we'll go ahead and Mr. Luan give his report.
Okay, thank you. So this is, as mentioned, a conditional use in the 300 Jackson Plaza. This is was built and operated until about 10 years ago as just a completely light industrial kind of service facility. At that time, the tennis courts began, and that's the special land use permit that you see from 2012. That allowed essentially the special land use was for the entire property. However, there were some specifics about what was being granted, which are 1 through 6 in that. So the whole property was granted a special land use to allow commercial indoor recreation. So somewhere after 2012, the tee box went in next to the tennis courts, and they were permitted because the whole site had a special land use permit. That was subsequently, moved into by the current applicant of Ann Arbor Indoor Golf. So now we find ourselves with a request for a restaurant type use to allow food and alcohol to be served within the site. Similar to the first request that came up with the tennis courts, this request is actually for the entire property. So so if approved as advertised, any of those units within this building could convert to a restaurant use. So I'll talk about that in a minute, but I think maybe we may want to place a condition of that. That's the background. As you see from our report, we have a few issues that I think the applicant should provide some additional information on. In general, they have been operating, there's been some kind of indoor recreation operation, occurring here for a number of years. There have been no issues with parking or anything like that I've ever been made aware of since the tennis courts showed up. I think there's enough parking for what the applicant is proposing to do on this site. Particularly since they talk about the hours of operation not being exactly the same with the businesses on site, the industrial type businesses that are on site. That being said, we do have a few questions for the site or for the development. Those are contained in our review. We primarily have to do with the kind of specifics to this site and how they're going to operate. We did ask for a floor plan. I don't remember getting a floor plan. The applicant indicates he sent it to us. I do not remember seeing that. If it came in our email, I didn't get it. I apologize for that. That's something that we would want to see as a very detailed floor plan. We need to know a little bit more about things like numbers of employees, type of food that's going to be served, where the food's coming from. Are they making it on site? Or are they bringing it in? So these are things I think we have to kind of nail down. And then the other thing is that I would, although it's not in our report, I would be inclined to recommend to the Planning Commission that we only allow Suite 292 to be considered as a restaurant and not all of this 300 Jackson Plaza. Not that all of 300 Jackson Plaza is going to convert to a restaurant, but if it did, there would not be enough parking for that to occur. So I think while it was advertised for the whole site, the Planning Commission has the ability to place conditions. And this is one of those conditions I would recommend, that only Suite 292 be considered. If other suites want to convert to a restaurant use at some time in the future, they can come to the Planning Commission as well. in addition to that, I think there's some specifics here that would be helpful to have before we would act on this. So I think this information that I'm requesting, and I think some of the things I heard from the planning commission should be addressed, perhaps resubmitted before we move this on to the township. So that would be my thoughts on this. I don't have any terrible problem with what they're doing. I'm in contact with the applicant and the owner on this project. I just think we need to be a little more specific. Uses like this can sometimes morph into things we don't quite envision. And so it's good to have some specifics before we act. So that's my thoughts, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Sorry, may I ask a question? What would happen if the entire facility was converted into a restaurant and there wasn't enough parking on site? What would happen?
Well, we wouldn't. So a change of use, that would be a significant change of use. So right now, we're talking about a change of use for one suite. It's actually not a change of use, it's a special land use within the district. It's already in our commercial recreation. But if some of these facilities like the sprinkler place, and there's I think there's automotive repair facility here, if all of those land uses change, that would be considered what we call a change of use. And you can do a change of use, minor change of use up to about 1,000 square feet with no problem, but if you go over that, that kicks in full-blown site plan approval. And so they couldn't just, like, if we granted this, they would still have to come in for site plan approval. And then we would then review the whole site, make sure they have parking. They might have to add some parking, although I'm not sure where they would do that. So your question, what would happen if the whole thing converted? It would come before the planning commission for a site. And you would have a chance to review. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Luan?
I think you've answered it, but just for clarification, the conditional use permit, we're the recommending body. It is approved by the board of trustees. That it's not planning commission. And is parking allowed on Jackson Plaza on the road, or is it?
It's a public road. I don't know of any general restrictions on parking on the street in Scio Township, unless there's some special, usually only in private road situations. I don't know of any restrictions that the road commission has for parking on the street.
Yes, Commissioner Hyde?
The way I'm hearing this from you, Doug, is that we would need to have this be submitted with a full site plan showing dimensional and where they're going to be preparing food, where they're going to be storing food, where they're going to be serving.
Well, you can certainly request that.
Oh, you're not saying that that's required.
Yeah, it would be required if what they were doing, if they're expanding the building footprint or doing something that would require additional parking than what's out there now. And I don't think this would require additional parking. I don't think they're adding a footprint. So the requirement for a detailed site plan, that would be the second step, although we mentioned that, I guess depending on what the applicant would give us. If we can see that the footprint is going to remain exactly the same, which I think it is, and that this use won't require the addition of 15 new parking spaces or something like that, there will not be a requirement for additional site plan. So if you want additional detail, now is the time to ask for that additional detail.
And then my second question, comment, has to do with the applicant has said that they would have this be open to the public, but in their write-up, in the write-up that's in our packet, it said that it would be for the existing, members. So I'd want that clarified in the application. Sounds like it would be open to the public and that this is going to become a restaurant potentially. And that's what we're approving. And not necessarily a little bar with golf food. It could become anything if we approve it as just anything. So that's my comment.
I want to move to our public, and unless there are any other questions of fact.
You mean public hearing?
Yep.
So I have a question of fact. You're at Suite 292. If things go great for you, do you see yourself expanding to one of the adjoining units, or are you gonna stay at 292?
Any more expansion, side one seems to be a good business there. And the tennis facilities, it's good business too, but at least in that location, it'll be difficult to go further.
And is your business now open to the public, or do you have to be like a member? Like you have to, you know?
We have both. If walk-ins are welcome, you can book online. It's open to the public.
You're not like an
But
indoor-
we do have memberships of 10 weeks, 20 weeks.
But you're not an indoor country club, so to speak, and this is just gonna be your bougie little swanky country club bar that, okay. I mean, it doesn't sound like it, frankly, but okay.
So, okay, we'll go to the next phase of the public hearing then and open up to the public. Is there anyone present in Township Hall that would like to address the planning commission on this conditional use?
Can I ask a question? I'm friends with Furman, I'm here with him, but given the discussion.
Your name?
Yeah, if you could,
John Vina,
yeah, if you could come in and sign in, please, that'd be great, under the public hearing for this.
What's your name, sir?
John Vina,
So with a V?
V as in Victor. I was just taking some notes on some of the comments you were making. So because I know we'll discuss this later, the questions about variations, whether it's the food or the hours of operation. I know when we were talking earlier, the idea was, like you might think, at the turn, some sandwiches, some hot dogs, some bags of chips, things like that. The ability to vary that is not really.
Probable.
Yeah,
It's not highly probable.
and I think any hesitancy that like Furman was mentioning and that I was thinking when you were asking that is what gets locked in now as we're talking, right? But coming in, I think the idea was chips, possibly a hot dog machine, spinning some hot dogs, some sandwiches and stuff like that. Not going beyond the footprint of the building. And when you're asking about the public versus anybody, I was like, oh, does that mean we have to keep people from coming in who aren't golfing? And I don't know that we thought about that. Right? I mean, so it wasn't intended for people to come from the PTA meeting, and go, hey, let's go over and grab a beer there, but.
No, but you might want a liquor license, and that could be a factor, whether or not we give a liquor license.
They do want a liquor license.
I know that, but my point is, the access of that limited supply to the public might be a factor that the Board of Trustees looks at.
I guess what I'm saying is, which would be, and I just may be ignorant, he may know this, but which is the more favorable approach to that? In other words, the plan here is to accommodate the golfers and the business, but if it means opening it up to the PTA or the people getting off at Wendy's or whatever, that there's no issue with that, but it's not the intended audience. So I'm not sure which is the preferred route as far as the commission is concerned.
Yeah, well, we can talk a little bit more. So, yeah, I just want to move on to the next person who may want to address the planning commission on this. Is there anyone else in Township Hall? If not, we'll turn to our online public.
There is one hand up. That is a Seth Tompkins.
Yeah.
So Mr. Tompkins, you now have the floor. So unmute yourself and you have the floor.
Hello, my name is Seth Tompkins, and I'm actually Sam Fermin Wong's attorney. And so I wanted this commission to know that Sam and I have been working with the municipality since before August, trying to figure out how we could expand his business by bringing some food service and bar service, so that the people that were golfing in foursomes could enjoy a beer or hit the 19th hole after they were done golfing. And so there were a couple questions that this commission had asked that I just wanted to respond to. One of them is that we've been trying to work to try to get a license. We were told that there was a DDA license that would be available. And so we've actually had to apply for and went through the process with the DDA to get their approval for a different type of license. And then this quota license became available because the prior applicant of this quota license said that they were no longer interested in it. And so that other license was no longer available. And so we've been working on this process for now with the municipality for 6 months. And so I know that there may be some hesitancy by the commission to grant this use. But from a practical standpoint, with respect to even if you grant this use, you have to remember, we're still going to have to go to the health department, and they're going to want to see copies of the menu and make sure that we go through the entire regulatory process with that. And we're going to have to go through the building department in order to build out the bar. And there's going to be a whole regulatory process with that. And again, if there was ever going to be an expansion of the existing floor plans, then we'd have to come back before this body with a whole site plan for a review and probably ask for an expansion of the land use. And I know that Sam is prepared to do that in the future. But for right now, from a practical standpoint, if you, and I hope you approve us tonight, we still have to go before the Board of Trustees and ask them for this quota license. And assuming that they'll go along with that and approve that, which we believe that they would, I still have another 6 months in front of us to make the application with the Liquor Control Commission. And so while I know there are some questions, they're not that really big questions, like what is the menu and the hours of operation. Right now, the hours of operation are set because you can't go past 11. He's not planning on going past 11. I know there are questions as to who this bar is intended for, but with a Class C license, you're considered a place of public accommodation. He's not a private club. He has to let anyone in that wants to come in. If someone in their family wants to come and eat hot dogs, that's up to them. And if they're over 21 and they order a beer, he's got to serve them. That's just the law. So I'd ask that this commission consider that, since the overall recommendation of staff was that this was consistent with the intent of the use of this particular property, that you grant us the land use tonight, so that we can simply move on to the next step of, with all of the different, there's all of these other departments that we're still going to have to go through. And there's lots of checks and balances to make sure that, the bar is going to be installed correctly, that people are going to have the training and food service to make sure that they're not going to poison someone by serving bad hot dogs, that liquor control is going to make them all get alcohol service training for their staff and for their management. It's a requirement now. And I just ask that we don't delay the process. And if you have the inclination to grant this tonight, that's really what we would prefer, just from a practical standpoint. And that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
There are a couple of people online, but neither of those people have their hands up.
We'll wait just a few minutes before we have a motion. Or a few seconds, I should say. Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So
Move and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Any opposed? Right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:40.
are we closing the hearing or are we closing
The
the
public
public
hearing.
comment?
The public hearing for the conditional use. We already closed the public comment.
And we're now at the possible action, whether we make a resolution or we wait to see if the cake needs a little more baking. Is that
So
what
I'd
we are
like
doing?
to, I'd like to speak. Yeah.
Sure.
So, at first, Doug, does the conditional use run with the land?
Yes.
Okay. So, just to take all the comments that have come today, I would be concerned about just moving ahead and not knowing what we're doing here with this project. It's the first time it's come before us. I've seen it before, but I'm not looking to delay, but and I would be concerned about just doing a plain old conditional use. I agree with the recommendation, Mr. Luan, about the conditional use being subject to suite 292. I also would be concerned about that the use be provided by your customers, not just anybody coming off the street, because then you get, not only do you get into parking and all that, I mean, I don't know how popular that'll be. Sounds like you have a popular business right now, so. And I think it's important to, we've had to deal with people expanding the definition of the use before, so that's why it's not about trying to delay your project. I don't have a problem with what you're trying to do, but some of these things about, I'm just open to everybody that comes off the street or, and the use being specific to that suite, I would be concerned about. I'm just one commissioner, so. No, I want to finish.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to give you and your team some idea as just one commissioner. I don't need to get into hot dogs and sandwiches necessarily. I think the point was well made by Mr. Tompkins, but I do think who the service, alcohol, and your food is delivered to or serviced, I think is important. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
And I have a little bit of the opposite concern, Kim, and that is in looking at the Liquor Control Commission's website for on premises where we have one available quota license. So let's say that someone at the Goodrich Theater or that project or somewhere else wants to get that remaining quota license. Who should it go to? How is that one quota license that we can, that the board has to dole out or is allowed to dole out, recommend? How does that best serve the Scio Township as a whole, rather than a few people who are golfing and playing tennis? So
I'm missing your point.
my point is liquor licenses are hard to come by. Where should it go in Scio Township and who should it serve?
Okay.
The general public or a small subset is, I think, what your point is.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't know the
Okay, now I
answer.
get it.
I don't know the answer. Now, sometimes if you're out of quotas, then you can apply for DDA licenses. I know liquor license is a kind of a niche thing and others can become available depending, but I don't want to get too far out on my skis on that. It's just like, at some point, I don't care if they serve hot dogs. Like, if we say these guys can have that last liquor license, and the board that is, then who do we say no to?
Well, if it's the last liquor license, we don't have to, that's it. We don't get
Well,
to say
except I
yes
don't
or
think
no.
that's our purview.
No, I agree, I agree. No,
Yeah, but-
I agree. I'm supportive of this, whether we vote on it today or whether it comes back.
Yeah,
in the
I'm
future
supportive of it,
better
long as,
developed.
long as we define what the conditional use is for that suite, and it's, I think it makes sense that it would be limited to those customers.
We'll finish our little discussion and, yeah. Did you have any questions?
Actually, Mr. Resident, so is it a first come, first serve? Could somebody cut in line then? Let's say somebody came in while he's working, if we were to postpone this and somebody else comes in, the movie theater comes in, for instance, could they cut in line and take that license?
No, but at some point, I think that the municipality makes a recommendation or approves it, because they can be limited. Ann Arbor just did that. They got additional quarter licenses, several applied, and not everybody got one.
I mean, I don't think that we can make a decision about.
No, I understand that. I understand that, but what I don't want to do is give a stamp of approval down here, then they think they're gonna get it, and they might not get it from the board of trustees if there are competing projects. That's my only
Oh, okay.
caveat.
No, I think, oh, go ahead.
This
Commissioner
was,
Chang.
I'm sorry, I didn't even know I was still.
This one might be for you, Mr. Lewin. So when we say that it runs with the land, if, let's say, the driving or the golf business closes, could the bar still remain open, right? It has to be accessory to the business. So if the golf course business closes, the bar also closes with it? Or could it just be a standalone bar in there?
It could, that's why we need a little more detail of how they're gonna operate this, because it was advertised as a restaurant. It didn't say restaurant, that's accessory to a golf driving. So if they left, they have a restaurant use in that, really as requested on the whole building, but I'm suggesting we limit that to suite 292.
I mean, I guess I could see a couple ways of if we were comfortable with it. One would be a certain square footage of suite 292. The whole suite would be, I mean, that would be a very large restaurant. That's 12,000 square feet. So I guess the question is, I don't have a problem with what they want to do at all. And I think it enhances the business and it enhances, possibly, collaborating with the folks next door. But I think in my mind, it is either an occupant load for the quote restaurant use or a square footage of the suite that could be used as a restaurant. And to me, that's critical. It's not so much the layout. I don't really care. It's more the capacity, which would be guided by a square footage or by a seating capacity. And that's sort of how I view, moving forward, because what you want to serve, it's more of the number of people that are going to come in there or the area that would be dedicated to this use. I don't know how other folks feel about that. And then I would like to give the applicant an opportunity to respond to some of the questions. and so forth.
So I agree kind of with your thinking. Square footage would be difficult to measure or to police or comply. Always changing the layout, right? A little bit of chairs and tables, etc., right? So seating capacity clearly one, which we've done in the past, Doug.
What kind of capacity?
Seating capacity, yeah, and I think we're limited, very limited, because a lot of the space, putting area, the bays themselves, there's not that much. I think I mentioned 40 people max, 50 people. If we put tables, maybe a little bit more, we won't pass the 60. You're concerned about the parking. The parking that we have at 300 Jackson Plaza is 3 times the one we have at the Homes campus. just so you know. And it's barely used, and during our hours of operation, it's even less used because all the others are 5 to 8. We're picking up at, 8 to 5. We're picking up at 5 o'clock is the majority of our business. So that 20% is even close to nothing at the time we're picking up our customer base. So I don't see, I mean, it's possible, but it's highly, highly improbable that we will have any concerns with.
I would not be concerned about parking in this area. The streets are barely even used. over
I know, I
there,
just
so
drove
they
by
can
it.
park on the street and nobody's gonna complain.
I think,
I was just gonna say, I'm in support of it as proposed. I have no issues.
For
with
the whole
what's-
building or for the suite?
For the whole building, yeah, I don't see an issue with it. It doesn't sound like it's even gonna happen. It sounds like it requires additional approval anyway. I also don't think it's a terrible use in that space. It's not like even if it all was a giant restaurant, it would not interfere with any of its neighbors. I couldn't even see how that would happen.
Is it one owner for the whole building?
Yes.
So does the whole building mean it could be like a little bit of a restaurant row? Potentially,
awesome.
okay, okay.
Sky's the limit if you approve the whole building.
I really don't think it's gonna happen.
I mean, I think
plan
I'd be more open to just keeping it. I mean, they can always come back. You know, if they come back and say, hey, you know, the restaurant's the thing we want to do. And the building owner, I'm not sure, you know, you in particular would do that, but if the building owner wanted to come back and say, yeah, we want to do 6 restaurants. Then I think we'd want to, you know, take a look at the whole site and how they were going to do it and that kind of thing. But for the one suite, I think that's, you know, that's.
Well, we effectively give them a restaurant monopoly in this building,
Well, unless somebody else comes back.
right? Without jumping through some hoops.
I suggest something
Sure.
for planning commission consideration. The idea, I know we're talking about the use of the restaurant versus the golf use. And we don't have exact numbers, but if you wanted to, if there was concern that this would just convert to a full restaurant, you could say that the restaurant use permitted, you could place a condition on it, say the use would be accessory to the indoor commercial recreation. So that if indoor commercial recreation ever went away, it couldn't fully convert to a restaurant, if that's a concern of the whole planning commission. So you could just say accessory to the golf driving range or the golf simulator business. And then if the golf simulator business went away, they couldn't just convert the whole thing to a restaurant. So I know that was a question, so that'd be one way to address it if you so desired.
Is that an actual concern?
For me, it's more the parking. Did you say it was a 12,000 square foot building?
No, 56,000 for the whole building. The
But for the
suite's
suite,
12,000.
for suite, if this were to,
12,000.
so how much parking would be required for a 12,000 square foot restaurant?
Depends on the number of tables.
Right. I mean, it's really more, I'm not opposed to it either. It's just.
But they would.
It's gonna have an overflow now.
But they would have, if it came back as a whole restaurant, it would have to have, it's a site plan, so it would have to have a site plan. What we're approving doesn't need a site plan because it's proposed as just a portion of it.
Accessory
Accessory.
use.
Well, or,
Yes.
In essence, that's what they're asking, and so I think we ought to make it, I would think that we would make it specific, and therefore we're not approving a 12,000 square foot restaurant.
and that's not what's even before us today.
No, but it could.
But it's only in part.
Could, I'm talking about what's before us
We
today.
had a could issue whenever there was a gentleman here, sorry, taking us back to another thing. We had a could issue where a gentleman just wanted to build another house on his property, but he technically could have gotten up to 4 houses on his property with this rezoning request that he had to make in order to build 1 house. I think we could go down the could road all we want to, but that's not really what's before us. I think that probably the most important thing here is that I don't think that we should delay this application. And so if we need to put conditional, extra conditions around this so that they can sell hot dogs and beer to their patrons, then perhaps that's what we should do. I don't think that's necessary, but
And what's the percentage of square footage if we call it accessory?
There's no, there's a definition of accessory
Uh-huh.
use, but there's no square footage. I think it says something like it's subservient to the principal use or something like that. And there's a definition of accessory use.
So it could be accessory use to suite 292. It doesn't have to be to the specific business, and that would give at least
Yeah.
some
Good.
flexibility.
I think it needs to be defined. I don't want to belabor the point. I mean, it runs with the land, people. This is not. This,
But I guess I'm seeing it as a good thing. And
I'm not objectionable to the project.
And it
I
can-
just want to make sure it's crafted such that we don't have a problem down the road. Somebody else moves in there.
And they can do an accessory restaurant use to their suite.
Correct,
Right.
if we define it that way.
And I guess with Jeff, I'm okay if he gets out of the golf business and goes into the restaurant business, if that's what works there. I'm not trying to tie this guy's hands, but.
I
if
think
that's
the
what-
conditional use for the building is recreational. So I don't know that he can just have a restaurant.
Well,
in the building.
if we do the conditional use for the building, but I guess what we're talking
no,
about
no.
is doing the
He's-
conditional use for the suite.
We are talking about that.
This
And I
week.
think
I'm
that's
talking about
what's,
this week.
I think that was Riser's comment.
Right.
And I'm saying that he can't do that because the overall conditional use for the building is for recreation.
So thoughts?
Yes, I have a question. again.
Yes.
If we were to entertain a restaurant in suite 292 for the whole suite, would they have to have a site plan? Would they have to show how they're going to lay it out and?
They may, if that would require additional parking. Above and beyond what they have,
But we wouldn't know that unless they,
unless I saw details for it.
correct. So we, in effect, we would need to have that, correct?
Well, I would need to have.
Okay, and it might not come before the planning commission. You could handle it administratively if it met all conditions.
Yes, if they showed up with a floor plan that just had a bar and a restaurant, then I would look at parking, and if it didn't fit, then we'd send it to the planning commission.
And here's where I'm going, is that if we were to approve tonight without conditions, just say suite 292 could have this use that they're requesting, we'd be approving it without you having seen that, without anyone having seen the layout. So I think that we do need to put the conditional use on there of it be accessory to their operation.
So we need kind of two conditions. The first one would be that the conditional use shall be confined to unit 292, and that the restaurant use shall be accessory to the underlying.
The golf
underlying
simulator
use of
business.
Whatever the current, something like
And
that, right?
the business in suite 292.
Yeah.
And we don't want
I
to
mean,
tie it to
those
a
are the two
specific-
recommended conditions that I can live with. Don't think we need them, but I can live with them.
So I think that's a good proposal, actually. I was just about to make a motion to that effect, but do we need to say restaurant / bar accessory to?
Just restaurant.
No, just restaurant, okay.
Any further discussion? Right, then I'll entertain a motion.
John, you want to put it in the form of a motion?
So I would, do I have to read, we need to read the whole thing, correct?
We do.
All right. Well, then I move that based on the information received from the applicant and reflected in the minutes of this meeting, the planning commission finds that the It says site plan. Do we want to say site plan or do we want to say the plan and related information?
Just say plan.
The plan and related information received by the township meets the required standards and findings for conditional land use and recommends approval. Specifically, it is found that the following required standards and findings found in section 36-224 of the zoning ordinance have been demonstrated by the applicant. Specifically, A, it will be harmonious and in accordance with the objectives and regulations of this ordinance. B, it will be compatible with the natural environment and existing and future land uses in the vicinity. C, that the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage ways, refuse disposal, or that the persons or agency responsible for the establishment of the proposed use shall be able to provide adequately any such service. D, that the proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future neighboring uses, persons, property, or the public welfare. E, that the proposed use will not create additional requirements at public cost for public facilities and services that will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. F, that the proposed use will be compatible with the township's adopted general development plan. Further, the planning commission recommends that the following conditions be placed on the subject conditional land use.
I have some language if you need it.
Yeah, go ahead.
That the restaurant for Suite 292 at 300 Jackson Plaza. Approve the restaurant, a restaurant for Suite 292 at 300 Jackson Plaza and is accessory to the business therein. I thought people said we didn't need to mention the business itself, but. Does that fit for you, Jen?
Yeah, the current business they're in or any business they're in?
The current, okay.
Or any
Or
business.
any business they're in, yeah.
Any business
accessory.
there, okay.
And did you have a second one that the conditional use shall be combined to unit 292 or suite 292?
I had it there that to approve a restaurant for Suite 292 at 300 Jackson Plaza and is accessory to any business therein.
Those are the two.
Yeah, two different conditions, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Support.
we have support from Commissioner Hyde. Any further discussion? A roll call vote, please, Secretary Chang.
Okay, Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Human,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Reiser,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes.
It's carried.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with everything, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a copy of this layout too. Okay, good.
We'll try. We'll do.
Then moving on to, we have no new business listed, unfinished business, discussion of the Goodrich Theater. So I believe the applicant's here, so come on up and welcome. Okay, and why don't we go ahead and probably we should report that we did, we had a meeting and kind of discussed with the applicant, and I think Commissioner Moore, I was there, and Mr. Luan, to kind of narrow down and discuss the uses. And then there was a communication about some revised uses, and then Mr. Luan, do you want to say anything about your, Mr. Luan does have a a memo that's in the packet.
Yeah, just real briefly, and then we'll just get into the discussion, because that's really what I'm here for. Is in my memo, I provided the minutes of the meeting. For the last planning commission where we discussed this. So everyone can kind of remember what was talked about. And as Chairperson Culbertson mentioned, there was a request that a small subcommittee of the planning commission meet to, with the applicant to go over their proposed uses. And we did that. And the applicant came up with some additional new uses right, for discussion. We had a couple comments in our memo on February 24th. They use the term professional office. I don't find that term in the zoning ordinance anywhere, so I would, and it seems like what they're talking about was more office technology to allow kind of startup businesses and flex space and things like that. So I think it more, maybe just semantics, but it seems like office technology would be a more appropriate title to the uses that they're proposing and that new list that they provided the planning commission. And then also we had a concern that one of the things they mentioned was a minimum of 20 units per acre for if we were to allow multifamily on the site, and which that would prohibit less than 20 per acre. So I don't know that we want to prohibit less than 20. We know that currently the highest multifamily density that we permit in the zoning ordinance is 10 per acre. You know that for a really dense project, 10 per acre is probably not enough. But having, we have a concern with saying a minimum 20 per acre, because it could be a good project that would be less than 20 per acre. So we recommend maybe a range of density. We say between 10 and 20, or some other range that the planning commission and ultimately the township board would agree upon. And again, to remind the planning commission, this is a proposed PUD amendment, and it will go on to the township board. So this is not something that ends with the planning commission. So you guys are just a recommending body at this point. And then, there was in our master plan and this in previous master plans, we talk about trying to provide for a wide variety of residential types of homes for different groups of folks. And so we would like the applicant to consider some kind of agreement to allow a portion of the homes to be considered affordable. If we are to allow a high density residential development in this part of the township, I think we as a planning commission or you as a planning commission should consider allowing some more affordable homes within that density project, just a percentage. We're not talking perhaps the whole thing, but that's something that's a special point. And then I think Chairperson Culbertson had responded to the applicant that perhaps a bar restaurant, because they, as you see from their list, one of the uses that they struck from the list from the previous time we spoke was a bar or a restaurant. And Chairperson Culbertson indicated that perhaps a bar and restaurant as part of the overall mixed development might not be a bad thing. As opposed to standalone use on the property. And so again, that was brought to your attention for purposes of discussion. So beyond that, you have the minutes from the last time we spoke. You have the uses that are now being proposed by the applicant. I will turn back to Chairperson Culbertson.
Thank you. So I'd like to just have the applicant sort of go ahead and start off the discussion and kind of the thoughts that you have, after our meeting and the correspondence.
Sure. Just for record, Josh Swardini with Etkin, 150 West Second Street, Royal Oak. So yeah, we, based on the last public hearing and meeting that we had with the entire commission, we agreed to meet subcommittee, like Doug mentioned. And what we were trying to do was come up with a modified list of uses that we were in hopes we could get support for. And so we did that kind of informally, but formally in nature as to what we were suggesting. One of the things I do want to clarify real quick is we didn't strike restaurants and bars. I think you had a comment to it about it being mixed use. So that was one thing that we didn't strike. But we struck grocery, and I think you said you wouldn't be opposed to grocery happening if it was, part of something, or maybe if it was residential. So we went through our list. We pared the list down from 17 to I think maybe 6 or 7. And based on the review of Doug's memo, which I went through today, just a couple of points on the office. Yeah, we were totally fine with whatever the categories nomenclature is, but I do want to make sure that we're suggesting office that could be what everybody would probably consider regular office or typical office, and also office that has a technology component. So whether that was a headquarter type building or something that had technology or a modest portion of R&D in it, that was the category that we
Like a
were.
lab or something?
What we consider a clean lab, prototype type labs, things that a lot of times people today are taking their headquarters and their lab buildings and combining them, because what they're finding is they gain symmetry, they gain efficiencies by doing that. And I had mentioned to the subcommittee before that I'd be happy to set up, tours or pictures or whatever we needed to kind of go through that type of office setting, but there's certainly a lot of those in this community and neighboring communities, but that's what we were meeting. I'm going to circle back to the density question, if we could wait for a second on that. As it relates to multifamily, I think we're in alignment. We believe that could be a very good site for that. As far as the master plan, and I want to make sure these are the right words, but providing for affordable housing to residents. We're open to discussing that. I just would really need to understand I'll call them metrics of what that is and what that means. So on a percentage basis, or what those metrics are based on, if it's a countywide, if it's a township wide economics. We would have to look at that to make make sure it made economic sense. I'm sure it could in some capacity, but I don't have that yet to be able to review. And then as far as the bar restaurant as part of a mixed use, we're in alignment. We're okay with that. One of the things that I do want to make sure I'm clear about though is that I think when we were discussing that, we were talking about a new standalone bar or restaurant as part of the the redevelopment of the site. But if one of the categories that we labeled originally and kept on the list, we called entertainment, indoor recreation, or family recreation to that nature. With some of those types of uses or those developments, there might be a bar or restaurant component to it. So we wouldn't want to put that in a silo that we wouldn't be able to have a restaurant or a bar, even if it was the cinema, for example. Obviously, newer cinemas have bars and restaurants in them. So we would call those separate pieces versus just a standalone, bar or restaurant if we were to build one from scratch. So I just want to make sure there's that clarification, and we can talk through that.
So as
So
opposed to what?
as a,
A standalone, so the bar restaurant concept is standalone in your mind?
yeah. But if there was another use and I was using the example of call it indoor recreation, family recreation. If as part of that, there was a bar or restaurant with it, I wouldn't categorize that as the same as the standalone or having to be a condition of a mixed use. Because if someone came along, and I'm not saying there is, if someone came along and wanted to lease the building as it stands, but as part of that, they wanted to bring recreational use, but have bar or restaurant in it, we may have to just say, okay, and it might not be a mixed use or redevelopment because we would need the parking more than likely for that use and reuse the building as it sits today, or basically rebuild out the building. So I wanted to talk about having those be separated because, in order to reuse it for that use, we might not be able to do mixed uses on the site, is basically what I'm saying. And coming back to the residential and the density of the residential, yes?
Okay, so you're, I think, just to clarify that, as mixed use, whether it's on the site, across the site, or within a building in the site, is still a mixed use. I think that would be my.
Okay, and my definition of that is different. And it's okay. I guess what I'm saying is, if a tenant came along for the existing building, and as part of it was a recreational, I don't know what that is, but say it's a combo of this, that, and the other. But as part of it, they want to put in a bar or restaurant, I would still categorize that in the entertainment and recreation category and not the bar or restaurant category, because it's still using that building and it's a part of the recreation, not
Like a movie, a bowling alley, or a roller skate.
something like that. Yeah, correct.
Like a driving range with a bar.
No, but I mean,
Well, right,
something
no, I
like,
mean-
no, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think the intent of that is just to have you redevelop the site and it's just restaurant and bar. That is what we don't want to happen.
Mhm.
Just have that because of the competition with the other neighbors
Right.
and so forth.
Right.
It's not a synergistic.
No, I get that.
Yes, so I think that's.
So a standalone bar or restaurant would be in competition.
Right. This would be part of a recreational facility, and a lot of those have bars and restaurants in them.
But I'm just piggybacking on what you said a little bit ago, that you're envisioning we could do a standalone bar and restaurant.
As part of a mixed use. And that's what the suggestion was.
I think. But we're trying to work within do we have a
Okay.
definition of mixed use in our ordinance? We don't.
No, we just talk about it. So I'm looking at my list because unfortunately, because I didn't have internet, was not able to look at Mr. Luan's memo. That way I know what was said, what was coupled, because I shared my list with you.
Mhm.
So for instance, the multifamily was tied with retail, not retail by itself. Remember our discussion around that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because with your list, when you redo your list, you just have retail, it all looks separate to me. But I kind of did a little connecting them together, that whole idea of retail would be part of a multifamily type build. Is that what you have remembered?
Yeah, I remember the discussion, but I wouldn't want to, again, put them in silos. If we could do multifamily, it wouldn't necessarily mean there would be retail.
Connected to the multifamily.
Because it may or may not make sense.
Would it, Mr. Moore, would you feel comfortable if it were the list that's provided? I don't know if you're able to see this now, but the list that's provided, if we were to say a minimum of 2 items from this list, is that even something that we could say? Does that even make sense? I need to use more words.
Oh, from the 7 that
Yeah,
Mr.
1, 2,
Swardini
3, 4,
put together?
5, 6, 7. Yes, that a minimum of 2 of these be used.
Well, I think the idea was that in our meeting, we just talked about, these are the things we would like to see. And what he could go out and market of those things, of these, now, of the 7, let's say,
Right.
6 or 7, that we would be open to the 6 or 7 ideas. And that, of course, it would depend upon marketability. So I'm not looking to down the list. That wasn't what I was trying to say at all.
I guess what I was trying to address, it sounds like you have concern over it being a standalone restaurant or bar, which I would share that concern.
Yeah, I do have a concern because there's synergy. The whole condominium PUD was all about the synergy.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to give some flexibility to you to be able to market the property in the best way you can, okay? And we're open to that to the extent that it stays in that idea of the synergy.
Mhm.
So I think a standalone restaurant bar would be in competition, and that's not what we want
You
to do.
mean solely.
Yes, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't want to use a bunch of words. I'm
No,
using
I'm asking.
standalone. I think the idea is to not tamper with the intent of what those 3 units were supposed to do for each other. As long as we keep that in mind, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioner Moore, well, okay, let me try changing the way I want to say that then. So in that list, restaurant and bars is one of the things just standing by itself. Could we amend the restaurant and bars thing to restaurant and bars as a component of one of the other options in this list?
Yeah, I see what
Needs
you're
some
saying.
wordsmithing.
Because
but-
see, I would
Yeah, I
be,
see what you're saying.
yeah, I would be okay if the whole site was multifamily. And then
Right.
and then the other uses would be, or a mixture of these uses.
Right.
And it could be a mixture of multifamily and these uses, but if you only have these uses and you don't have multifamily, we want, at least 2, maybe 3 of those uses.
Yeah, and I don't think our discussions directly said that to you. And so I'm feeling a little, I'm glad you brought it up that way, Commissioner Culberson, because while I want to give you the flexibility you need to make money, I'm not trying to limit you and what you need to do to market your property, but I guess.
Yeah, I think it may need to be 2, because if you have lodging, you might have a restaurant bar associated with the lodging, but you may not have retail. You might want to have a couple hotels there and so forth, but it would still work to be synergistic with what's there, even if it had its own restaurant.
Have you seen that facility that's at Ann Arbor Saline Road and Oak Valley Drive?
Mhm.
That's what I would hope for, maybe
that's-
something
yeah.
a little less cross 4 parking lots to get to a business kind of thing, but something that's a lot closer to what I would hope to see in this kind of place.
That's what I was thinking too, and I think I brought it up at the last meeting.
Is there like retail on the first floor?
And
Second,
on the
third
main
floors
road,
is a living?
so like it's retail on Ann Arbor Saline Road, it's retail, and then apartments up above.
So
And then as you
frontage.
go into it, it's all apartments.
So we don't have frontage.
That's correct.
You've got 94 frontage.
Yeah,
So it's kind of front.
I think we're on the same wavelength here. It isn't,
okay,
I didn't change that retail word because that was one that was on there before and I just left it, but
yeah,
But what we had kind of talked about too is if we had a multifamily development and maybe there was I'm using examples here, obviously, but a coffee shop or a dentist office or maybe a donut place. A lot of times, when they're on the first floor like that, the frontage is a big deal because if they can't see it, it either has to be a destination or it has to be visible. So a freestanding thing, I think if you tied it to another use being in there, that would be okay. I just, what I wanted to make sure was in that other use of entertainment, we could have a restaurant and bar part of that because you won't sign one of those deals without being able to do that because they
I
have
see.
to have a restaurant or bar.
I think I might have gotten caught up on your standalone language.
Oh, yeah. I get it.
I did.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about the affordability piece, we talked about 10%. Talked about, I think in our meeting, we talked about 10%. And we talked about the countywide definition of 80% of
The
the,
AMI.
what is that again?
80% of the AMI. I think that's the wording that we're putting in the PUD for the density bonus. So, so it's a minimum of 10% of, and then
Of units.
80% of Washtenaw County's AMI.
Okay, so it's a county, because some of them we've worked with, it's like a radius, like a mile radius.
Yeah.
So it's Washington.
I think we're doing the county.
What does AMI stand for again? I know you told me this.
Just looked it up.
Yeah,
Area median
income.
income.
yeah, area
Area
median
median.
income.
Yeah.
So that ought to,
I'd just have to.
that
do-
would give you some, yeah,
Yeah, I have
I
to
mean,
do the
the
research.
median income in this county is high.
Yeah, no, I mean, we would have to do.
It's higher if you go within a mile. Well, I guess it depends.
Scio versus,
County.
Yeah,
Washington
yeah,
County.
Yeah, Ann Arbor versus Ypsilanti.
Scio versus Ann Arbor. So Scio's, because they got a lot of students that don't have the income. So Scio's pretty high income. So
Right, and that's why we did the county. As being the affordable mark, as
So
opposed
this-
to, Scio or whatever. Yeah. And then the other piece of that is the sustainability piece. The other part that we're putting in the density bonus is there's a DOE's Zero Energy Ready program, which also is eligible for IRA bonuses. So that would be the other thing that would be important from a sustainability piece with the multifamily.
What bonuses, what did you call it?
Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act has, I believe it's a 2,500, I shouldn't say what it is, but it's a large bonus for, a larger bonus for, it's a zero energy ready building, and they have a kind
What is
of
it, when you say
criteria.
a bonus what? Bonus like tax incentive or bonus?
Or more dense housing.
No, well, the density bonus is what the Scio gives you.
Okay.
So you could increase the density over what our typical density is. But this is, they're trying, it's a Department of Energy
Uh-huh.
through the Inflation Reduction Act. So there's, I believe it may be $2,500 a unit, but there's a bone, and what is that is, I don't know if it's in the form of a tax credit or an actual direct pay. I do not know.
And then isn't that act got a time sunset to it?
It does, but it's, I think it's like 2032 or something. So it isn't a short term.
Yeah, I'm happy to I just gotta do the research. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, right. And, but what that does is it allows, for us to just say, yeah, we want to promote density, but we also need to promote those other
Yeah.
elements of affordable housing and the sustainability.
Right, so coming back to the density, I can't, to go into that part of it and that question of it, I really is hand in hand with this stuff. Because again, as we all know, it has to pencil out on paper. So, to do these things obviously costs more. So you have to have more units to make your pro forma work. So we'd have to look at all of it and see what those costs mean, and then balance that with the number of units to make it a viable project.
Yeah, and I think what we'll be balancing too is obviously we have a certain set of, from our sewer. We have, a cap on the availability of sewer. So we're gonna be looking for, a project that is a good investment in, that the sewer that also meets some of the other goals, which would be the affordability.
Are you saying there's something in the master plan or something coming up engineering wise that the sewer's gonna be?
Well, we have a contract with the city of Ann Arbor for a certain amount of sewer capacity.
Okay.
So it's not infinite.
But there's a set of REUs that are available?
Every property has a certain amount of REUs. And so
Oh, no, I know, I meant
And then
if there
overall.
was something different with the master plan, like there was set aside.
No. So, and that's always a part of the density piece that we have to consider.
So on the number, at the 20 units per acre, most of the people that have called, and I think I've mentioned to everybody before that, there's been a lot of people that have called for a lot of different things for this property because of where it's at. And most all of them have said that's the density that without talking about any of these other things typically makes sense. And I think, I don't remember if it was in this forum or when we had our subcommittee, there's Greenfield, there's RAT, which is around a parking deck, where there's Podium, which is above a parking deck. You know, certain groups like certain things and promote different things, but the 20 units per acre is kind of a target that they all look for. And that's why we put it on there. We've been part of some too, and whether it's 19.3 or 21.6, you know, 20 seems to be where numbers pencil out. We're not opposed to a range if it, but you know, we know that 10 is not gonna work, for sure.
Can I ask a question?
What is the minimum you think would work?
We think 20, because of what we've worked on before, what people have told us, what, you know, it's all the costs, interest rates and those things. And if we're going to be working with the zero energy stuff and all that, you know, that could be 20, 30% more on, call it heating and cooling on your space. It just is. So the units, you have to have more to lease to make up for the amount that things cost.
Yeah, I don't think that the issue was so much, it was sort of, you know, having a minimum but no maximum, kind of a range.
yeah,
there. Yeah.
And I understand what Doug's saying too. There could be a project that somebody could come along and say, you know, I'll do 14 and it's a viable project. I mean, just, we're not saying that sitting here today.
So what is 20, what does that look like? Is there a condo, an apartment complex? Are there some examples that I can visualize what 20 acres looks like?
Not inside of township, but Chris could probably tell you in city.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of some too. I'm like, wow, because it's, you know, it's a higher density at 20 units per acre. And I'm trying to think of one that, you know, obviously you're going up
Standard?
instead of
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
So-
so it's probably a 4-story, you know, relatively. Let me find it, because there are some
40,000 square feet.
visualizations of density.
20 units per acre.
Okay,
So
so I
that's
just-
like, it's like 2,000 square feet per unit, you know, if you were to stack them.
No, but that's gonna be helpful to have sometime, like some examples, I think. Because the,
Jan's looking for an example.
Yeah, because.
What about
No,
those
I don't
Windermere
need it now.
apartments out Traver? I'm sorry, out,
one,
not Traver, past Traver. Windermere, they were built around 1990.
I mean, there's, I don't know in this, you know, vicinity, but, you know, people have done, you know, where it's more townhouse type, where it's like 3-story, but it's a drive-in garage and you got, you know, den, second floor is living and then bedrooms above. And, you know, you've got, that'd be like, you know, 100 on 5 acres or something like that. But when you create the amenity base, because usually these communities have, you know, a pool, a dog park, you know, business center, computer labs, things of that nature. The units are smaller. They might be anywhere from 800 to 1,500 square feet a unit, just depending. And there might be 6 or 7 different styles or shapes or whatever, depending on, you know, how you site plan it as well. But most of them have some sort of outdoor use with it. Like, you know, the pool and the dog stuff and grilling areas,
Clubhouse.
stuff like that. But there are some that are different, that are townhouse type, where they may have, you know, a marketing building that's got a pool too, but they're more, you know, they're more singular in nature versus stacked.
If you want, Mr. Reiser, I think the Crossroads development is about 20 minutes per acre or thereabouts. And if you give me a minute, I can go grab the site plan.
no, I mean, I was just curious what it looks like, because,
And that's less acreage, isn't it?
Maybe similar.
Okay, so this is, and this, I'm just pulling this one up because it kind of goes through the, you know, townhouses go from 12 to 18 dwelling units per acre. Garden style, which is, where you have the courtyard kind of thing, goes from 18 to 25. The village cluster, like that would be what Celine Ann Arbor Road would be, is 28 to 35.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep, the wrap, which is a 4 or 5 story, for it would be down at like 45 dwelling units per acre. Yeah, that type of. And obviously it all, like you said, what sort of amenities you have, open
And I believe
space,
that
kind
one
of-
on Ann Arbor Sling Road, there's no pool, there's no.
I don't know. We would have to do, a market
House
study to
back
see.
there. I don't think there's a dog park, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah,
So do
so, yeah, go ahead.
Can we, if we say 20 acres, just using it a ballpark, can we promise that many toilets? You know what I mean? Do we have that much capacity?
20 units per acre.
RUs.
Yeah, RUs. Can we do the water and the sewer?
Yeah, because we had I'm thinking the one that we approved was 200, wasn't it 212 dwelling units? How many would this be if?
Around this, it's roughly 10 acres.
And they had enough REUs.
And that
That's what
wasn't
Wagner
huge.
and Liberty.
It took a chunk of them, but it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna run out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fairly over 90% sure we do have capacity, but a definitive answer would have to come from OHM.
Yeah, that might be good for you to
Discussion.
work out too, as we come up with that range.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're not promising something and
Right.
then we go, we don't have
Yep. You can't change that.
them. Without a very long,
Unless you-
a long negotiation.
What are you trying to do?
But anyway, yeah, so that gives us an idea of those.
Yeah.
Actually, I will send this.
I wouldn't be part of it.
But yes, I would.
And you'll have to understand also that the capacity is first come, first serve. That the way the Scio works it at this point. So if there were 300 REUs or 400 REUs, say there's 300 left, totally making that number up. And they took 200, well, then there's only 100 left in the entire.
So Jackson Road corridor.
So, that's a good question. We should kind of know that answer.
Is that something you would follow up on?
Yeah, I got a note to contact OHF.
I just remember the Crossroads project. They were like, OHM was not, no problem. Because they went from an office project. When the office market fell apart, they asked for a change to residential. And that project has a pool, which is even, well, I guess it's not the water that's a problem, it's the sewage.
Yeah. And I think it's also attractive to have a variety of, not just blocks of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, I don't know, that, I think we're probably pretty close to, check the RUs, come back with, kind of a final list with the standalone multifamily and the others being mixed, either in a single building or among, because the uses, it's different than, uses in buildings are different. You can have a mixed use within a building, or you can have a mixed use made up of multiple buildings.
I'm sorry to see grocery leave. I only have one in all of Scio Township.
What's that?
I only have one grocery store in all of Scio Township.
Yep.
I hate to see it leave.
Yeah, no, I think grocery would stay in with grocery retail in the mixed use.
Well, it's
Yeah.
marked out here.
Yeah, we're happy to add it back. I just trying to.
We just didn't want,
Pare it down.
So does it say grocery as part of mixed use, retail as part of mixed use, something as part of mixed use?
Yeah, as long as we
Maybe
define
you
it.
append that to it?
yeah, and it could be 2 or more uses.
Residential.
Yeah.
Is that how we're defining mixed use?
That's kind of how we have
That's-
traditionally.
How we've been discussing
as
it
long
with
as
this
it's not just-
project.
As long as it's not just a single use, if it's, for example, the park or the condos where the Leo's Coney Island is, that Leo's, the apartment or condos, and then there's an outlot to the south. We consider that mixed use because the two front lots are gonna be commercial. Condos were multifamily, that was all a single parcel. So we've never, as long as there's more than one use, we've considered mixed use.
So can I ask a question here?
Absolutely.
You can see that a few of us on the commission are interested in mixed-use residential, commercial, okay? And as it stands now, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, incorporating into the list. Yo, absolutely. We, I don't, we
So
don't
you
have a
wouldn't come
single.
back to us and say, oh, we're gonna do lodging, retail, and some recreation building, and there'd be no residential.
Maybe, yes, no, I want to be clear, we don't have a leader in the clubhouse, we're just looking at uses, because we've been very careful not to go flood the market with, when we don't know what we can deliver, because you lose a window, you lose credibility, all that kind of stuff, so we're just working on a list here, and we didn't know what the guidelines are.
You gotta know what you have to sell
Right.
before you start looking for buyers.
Right.
Well, just so you know, I'm heavily in the camp, if you hadn't heard me before,
I know, and I
of
had,
mixed-use
If
commercial
his response
residential.
is, then give us the density we need to find a buyer.
I understand, and I think we can work with that.
Could we get do you think the board would buy into that densify use? Would the board approve something that dense?
Let's find out.
I think we're definitely
know.
having those
I wouldn't want to
conversations.
make a prediction about the board.
I wouldn't either. I know that some are interested in the affordable housing aspect. I know that there are some who don't like density in other areas where you have to take a lot of trees down and do that. So this is a dense area. You know, some have said, what about housing next to a freeway? Well, that's Kensington Woods at $600,000 or plus or something. I mean, we got that everywhere
Yeah,
in Ann Arbor, and they're paying a
Yep.
lot of money for it.
yeah, right along our.
If done right, it's appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, okay, so does that give you a good basis to,
yeah, I think I know what I need to do. I might need to have a little feedback. I'm gonna try to amend this list and add what the mixed, because I hear you, but I think it's still a little bit on the mixed use side. And just to clarify one thing though, if we were to do residential, but we couldn't or we didn't want to do call it retail or anything else with it, we still would want to have that, preserve that right, because we may need to use the whole site for the residential.
Understand.
Okay.
Understand.
All right.
I do want to bring up one other matter. I know we sent you to the drawing board to come up with a definition of professional. So just so the rest of the commissioners know, we were careful in our meeting from our side. We didn't want like chemicals and, you know, a professional chemical lab in there or something like that. We're a little gun shy about chemicals, given our Gilman experience. So that kind of got us with Mr. Sordini and asking him to come back with a definition. So above where you see his list, where he's lined out some of them, there's a definition of professional office. To be honest with you, may I call you Josh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Josh, I don't know what that definition means. When
That's
Jan
why
called me
I left
and
the
said,
ball.
how are you with this email? And I said, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
So I know that,
That's why I left the bullet points, quite honestly, because I had to try to define something, but I'm not Webster, you know what I mean? But, so I left the bullet points to give example. I think what would probably be beneficial is to point you to some examples. And like I mentioned before, one of the architects that we work with has done a lot of these, and I could probably get you the professional pictures of, you know, when they're done to show you what this stuff looks like. I think you'll be very happy with it. It's not, you know, smokestacks and things bellowing out. It's real office that's got some of these components to it. And I bet you there's a lot of people in the close neighborhoods work at places like these, or hopefully we'll be back to places like these.
And I think you brought something up too about the uses. You were, what was the? No, in the meeting, you brought something up about what office. The issue.
Yeah, I think you hit on it. I mean, what we, what we don't want is, what I know as flex space is like, small office with a rolling door where you've got contractors, a bunch of contractors showing up. And, we kind of, that's what, that wouldn't be considered.
With large truck deliveries.
And however we define that, that's not, what we're okay with saying no to that. That in our world is like is more like a condo type situation. But if you look up, for example, and research what flexible office space is to certain people, it's the definition could mean different things to different people. These bullet points are really what we're talking about. But I think pictures and examples would help. I do.
And I would also stay away from the idea of just calling it professional office, but office and including medical, dental, clean tech and R&D,
That's
that
fine.
kind of thing.
That's fine.
Yeah. And that sort of went into, very similar to your.
As long as, like I said at the beginning, if IBM walked in and said, we want our HQ there,
Yes.
that's okay. So I'm not saying that's happening, but that would be the example of professional office to us.
Yeah, because professional office often means, it has to be a profession,
Yeah.
in a lot of zoning ordinances, but we don't have a definition. But anyway, okay, so I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what the market has to offer.
Yeah, the public would like to see you put in a movie theater.
Yeah.
With a restaurant bar associated.
Okay.
When we're done with him, is our PUD ordinance where it needs to be?
We have to, Doug has to, I think the next step is just the final drafting, and then we have to have a public hearing. And so we do want to move that along.
I'm just waiting.
I'm sorry?
It's ready to go. I just gotta get it on there.
Because do we need to have that? Do we need to have kind of that in place before?
Not really.
No, that's already an approved
We'll work
PUD.
toward it.
Yeah.
That existing 3-unit, including Goodrich Theater, is already an existing PUD.
Yeah, but it's a PUD for a movie theater.
No,
right?
it's a PUD for 3 different,
What
Units.
we're gonna be doing here is amending that PUD.
Right, I know.
But
Right.
we don't have to have that ordinance
Okay.
ahead of.
But the Carlisle-
One
Submit.
doesn't have to be in place before we do the other. Oh, that's okay. That was-
because the Carlisle is part of that PUD.
Right.
Cigar bar, all of
Right,
those
yeah.
3.
Yep.
We won't make you wait for that.
Okay. All right.
But with respect to density bonus, do we need to get that in place?
Yeah, we do. need to
We
think
have,
about that.
we have some of that we have certain criteria for a density bonus.
We have a lot of allowance for density bonuses in our
current
existing
zoning or in the current proposal of the change to the
current
PUD?
PUD
Both.
ordinance.
But we're
Okay.
changing some of the criteria in the new one.
But let's just say that it came down to what they asked for was met the new PUD ordinance, but not the old. We would, we just have that as part of our discussion to the board, to let the board know why we were approving.
Because I'm just thinking back, because I know we talked about it, but my recollection is we didn't.
Finalized.
Yeah, that's all. I know it's.
No, the existing
Hanging out there.
PUD language, as well as the zoning ordinance, allows for lots of density.
Okay.
We just have to.
I think-
Thank you. Take care, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so next on the agenda, reports, informational reports.
I emailed mine in writing.
Oh, what a good guy.
Did you send it to me?
I didn't see.
Oh, you know what?
I don't think
Sorry.
I got your email.
I don't think it got forwarded. We
Oh,
will
okay.
forward it
It's a
immediately.
need to know basis.
Yeah.
If there's a copier, I have.
No, it's fine. I'll,
We'll just make you read it.
no, just summarize it, John.
A lawyer?
Cliff notes, yeah.
Now it's gonna be one page. We held a public hearing on Heritage Woods, the PUD on Baker and Marshall Roads. No vote was taken. We amended our animals ordinance, addressing dangerous dogs. We defined that, stray dogs, dog waste, and dogs which cause noise violations. So there'll be a new ordinances there. We accepted a $1.7 million MEDC grant for Z Road Parkway and Path Road and Pathway Design and Build. The Park Road acceptance was controversial, and it was not a unanimous vote in that regard. We approved the session room site plan to allow the current tent to become a permanent feature, as well as the additional pavilion, 1,200 square feet in the parking lot. We approved the rezoning of Peter Huntley's 5-acre parcel where he wants to just put one more house. Jeff, you made reference to it earlier. We approved the salt barn for Washington County Road Commission. Tomorrow's agenda includes renewing the contract for Plant Moran, $67,000 for our audit, and GCSI, which is $37,800 per year for 2 years for lobbying and the services they provide. There's going to be a presentation of his annual report for the Water Resource Commissioner, Evan Pratt. We'll get a report from Andrea Garrett, Scio Township's assessor. We're going to vote on the possible commercial rehabilitation district at 300 North Z, which is a 29-acre site of the former University Microfilms in ProQuest that's been sitting vacant for 12 years. We're trying to do some stuff there. And then future votes and consideration will be whether or not there is a commercial rehab tax abatement granted anywhere from 1 to 10 years, as well as a brownfield TIF. We're extending an offer of employment to an assistant chief, fire chief / fire marshal. We're addressing unfunded employee and retiree healthcare benefits, the establishment of a healthcare savings program, as well as the establishment of a trust. This is one of the things Scio Township, I didn't say it in my notes, but I'll say it now. We got dinged down in our audit as needing corrective action. So we got to get our retirement benefit house in order, and we're endeavoring to do that. We also need to,
By that, you mean the funding of it?
yeah, funding of it. Yeah, funding of it. And like, hey, we hired somebody, we got to put some money aside for that employee. So yeah, the funding, yes. So we have deficits in that regard that we have to address. The Plant Moran said so, you know, we know so, we're doing so. There is also going to be a 1.4 million, we'll say, forgiveness of a loan, a transfer of money from general fund to fire that was noted in the audit. So we're gonna, that loan is going to be forgiven. There are a couple of proposals to do that, or resolutions. So that'll be done. Future agenda.
1.4 million?
1.4 million, you know, there was a $1.5 million loan. One payment of $75,000 has been paid from the fire back to general. So leaving a $1.425 million loan that's going to be.
So you're gonna zero it out rather than take us the full 1.5.
Yeah, it's gonna zero it out. That's right.
And
then,
is that because the fire department doesn't have the money?
No. It's because it was a loan,
It was-
interdepartmental loan.
yeah. They didn't
No, but
have,
we're gonna forgive it. Is that because the fire department doesn't have the money?
well, I guess.
Or they want to
they-
use their
they-
money to do something else?
Well, they needed the money. It was lent to them. And
Where-
it was a loan from ourselves to ourselves. It's gonna be forgiven. It was noted in the audit by Plant Moran, and there's a lot of movement to forgive it.
I
guess,
got
in
that.
the community and on the board. Future things we're gonna be talking about is conducting a public hearing for the 2023-24 budget and adopting that budget, deciding how to approach fire department funding, whether that's a millage, whether that's 2 millages, whether that's a SAD, whether there's some vehicle for funding personnel, as well as equipment. Engineering for Park Road, that's a controversial, it's more controversial than, it's pretty controversial. And it's made worse, in my opinion, because most of Park Road and Stabler Road are going to be now paved by the Trail Ones developer. So you're gonna have most of that stretch paved, but then there'll be this gravel stretch that goes from, I think, Cedar Ridge or Cedar Bend, but I think Cedar Ridge to Park Road. So that, that has to be improved, whether it's gravel, whether it's paved is TBD. For sure gravel at the minimum, and maybe only gravel. Consideration of the Heritage Woods plans. They're gonna be coming forward, and there was some heated discussion from neighbors who were probably at this commission, and you heard from them who live on Baker Road, and they had their interest that they were expressing through their attorney. So that's something that we held the public hearing, but didn't take a vote. And then finally, our Grove, which is a 5-acre housing development near the condos whose name escapes me.
Parkwood.
Thank you. Right, and that's going to be coming up at some future agenda item.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, and you might have it now,
These
right?
are the most complete
Yeah, no, if only we could
Concise and
all be good.
complete reporting we've ever gotten. Thank you.
All right, Doug, we don't have our engineering consultants. Do you have anything come in that we should be aware of or the public should be aware of?
We had a few, since our last planning commission meeting, we had a few pre-applications / concept meetings. I'll go over briefly. There was a moving and storage company on the north side of Jackson Road that is now going to be Palmer Moving and Storage, and that for some reason the name escapes me, but existing. It's a west side of Jackson. North side of the road.
Fish.
It was
Frisbee.
Frisbee, I'm sorry, yes, Frisbee. Frisbee Moving and Storage has bought out a Palmer Moving and Storage. And they are going to be doubling the size of that building for storage. So that will be coming in front of the planning commission at some time in the future. The Tractor Supply business on the south side of Jackson Road wants to add a greenhouse structure onto their existing building. Greenhouse will, have plants and so on and so forth within that. And it will also allow them to store some of the material that they're currently storing outdoors in the greenhouse area. That will be coming to the planning commission shortly as well. We met with a woman who lives in our ag district that wants to develop a childcare facility on her property. Some of you may or may not be aware, but if you have 6 or fewer children in a home, you can just,
All right.
yeah, you can just
Statutorily.
do that, and that's considered a family basically. And so the township doesn't even know if those happen. Anybody can, as long as you have state licensing, you can have 6 or less children. This woman we met with wants to have up to 12 children. And so in our zoning ordinance, that requires a special land use approval. So she will have to come before us for special land use if she wants to go forward. We also outlined some concerns with the site with circulation and fire circulation. And I think Jan had some questions about building code things that might come into play with that. But she may come before us with a site plan also. And then the people who own the old Panera bread restaurant, as some of you may or you should be aware, the old Panera is moving to one of the minor outlot sites, which will leave the old Panera, one that's under construction right now. Drive down Z Road, you see it, which will leave the current Panera vacant, while the current owner, of course, wants to rent that space. And so they are looking at the possibility of a number of uses. They've talked about a number of uses. but they would like to put a drive-through on that facility to allow some other type of restaurant. And so they've got a lot of ideas up there. They don't have anything set yet. That was more of a concept meeting. That was not a pre-application meeting. And then, so those are all things that we will eventually see here for the planning commission. And then the Knights of Columbus property, this project actually has a name. It's part of the Knights of Columbus project, but it's just the old Knights of Columbus property. I doubt if this gets approved, the subdivision will be called Knights of Columbus. But we all know it as that. And that project has resubmitted. Some of you may or may not remember, that project was before us as a preliminary PUD, and it was postponed by the planning commission to allow the applicant to go back and do some additional work. And so they believe they have done that additional work, and now they want to get re-reviewed by the planning commission. So our office is reviewing it. We're not done with our review yet. And so that will be coming on some upcoming planning commission agenda to relook at, to put back on the table the Knights of Columbus preliminary PUD.
Can I ask how many units, or do they have sewer or water, or is it how it's gonna be?
It's roughly 45 single-family home sites, and they want to do a on-site wastewater treatment facility. No municipal sewer. Part of their public benefit that they will be presenting to the planning commission is that they want to punch municipal water from the auto mall underneath I-94 to service this site, in part to try to alleviate concerns with the Gelman plume.
Right.
That has
It's not
been,
gonna blow the water on the table?
yeah, and there's been some positive tests in that area for the Knights of Columbuses. So that would do it. You know, get into this, I don't want to get into terrible detail, but you'll hear from the applicant. They believe that bringing water to that part of the township, particularly based on some of the positive test results we've been getting, would be a benefit. And there would be a fire hydrant placed out by Dexter and Arbor Road. So that's what they are proposing.
And for us to pay for it?
No,
Oh.
they are paying for the whole thing at this point. But we're getting into details.
Okay,
that I
sorry.
probably shouldn't be getting into at this point, because that will be before the.
Was
planning
it Norfolk Development Corp?
It's Norfolk. And then as Commissioner Reiser mentioned, the Arborist Grove site is in what we call detailed engineering review still. And they have gone around a couple of different iterations already with the township engineer to try to get a few of the items ironed out that were still of concern to both the township, the engineer, and the residents. So as far as I know, OHM has not provided a positive review yet, but that could happen. That could happen shortly. And when that happens, that will be going on to the township board for a final site plan.
Does it mostly pertain to water, drainage, things like that?
Yes. So those are, that one doesn't necessarily come to the planning commission unless the board was to send it back to us. Yeah, there's a fair amount of stuff coming our way.
Did the dealership that had to submit by the 25th
Oh, yes.
submit?
Yep, forgot about.
Okay.
We used to call it the suburban site. It's now Lithia. That's the site where American Roach used to be located. That is preliminary, now going into the final PUD stage for dealerships on that site, automobile dealerships. So that will be coming in. They did meet their deadline. There was a certain deadline they had to meet to submit their final PUD plan, or the PUD would have expired. And they did meet that deadline. And so that is under the review process right now by our office, township engineer, outside agencies, and that will be put on the planning commission agenda at the time that those reviews are completed. So So that's probably the biggest of it. Well, Knights of Columbus is somewhat controversial. But the Lithia / suburban site plan, that's a.
So there are actually brands of cars out there that we don't have yet in Scio Township apparently.
Apparently, I am always
They're moving
shocked.
from an existing site.
Oh, they got Rivians coming or something?
Every time I think we've gotten every possible car brand.
So-
there's
so-
some others that.
So are people moving? Are they new installs or people kind of moving from existing dealerships and then they turn into used car dealerships?
Two of them are moving, from
Okay.
what I understand, two of them are moving from the existing lot.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, okay,
Um,
and the benefit was hopefully 6 high, like a charging park. So there would be 6 high rate chargers, the ones that,
Number 2.
half an hour, you can
And then
charge a whole
what,
car.
and then what goes in the old
Oh,
place?
the street?
DVD?
They're rented, which I didn't realize. Those dealerships, the
So the
mall
owner has to figure it
dealership,
out.
they're rentals.
No, but it just expands out of Jackson Road is more car dealerships, because then they put other lots or used car lots or, I don't, I mean, that's just, I don't know, I don't need to.
Does it sound like a familiar complaint?
The deal was done before we got on. I mean,
But
No, but you know,
I hear you.
but as long as someone can charge their electric car.
That's just a side benefit. That's not.
Yeah.
But
That's a $300,000 benefit just with the chargers.
okay. Well, I'm just saying
Just
that
the fast.
that wasn't what sealed the vote.
No, okay, no, I mean, if it's a done fait accompli, it's a fait accompli.
Well, it's a fait, not until the board says it's a fait. Well, I think they voted on it already too.
Well, it's been, the preliminary PUD has been approved by the planning commission in Township.
Can I ask you a question about KFC? Didn't they get the hydrology?
Right. Is the report done yet?
Hydrogeological.
Thank you, hydrogeological report done?
And was that, my question
I'm
would
so
be,
disappointed.
was that really our requirement that was put on them?
Yes. But
They think they have overriding arguments to be made, so we'll have to hear.
because it was based on the community well primarily, but we also had consideration of the community wastewater being injected into the.
What they did provide is a plan
Yeah,
for doing a hydrogeo study. So they provided an outline of the plan.
we'll just look at the plan and say, okay, do it.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay,
Perhaps.
Without the study, they did a plan.
okay,
Well, they have to know what they're planning on doing.
all right. Let's see, chair report, I'm gonna do that, CBA and Environmental Sustainability Task Force. Basically zoning board of appeals didn't meet last month. And we are having our working session March 13th from 8 to 10 for the presentation of the draft plan. The other thing is I didn't get the bio, but Norm Roller is expressed an interest in becoming an official member. I'm gonna wait till I get the bio and then we will do the appointment, but that'll be a nice addition. And then I've been trying to find a contact at DTE around, they are piloting some community solar, but to try and get an understanding of where it works, where it's most economical, where it might be, what's the site criteria for us in Scio to do something like that. Right now, the only way it would be legal is a utility company, DTE, would have to own it. And then we'd have people that would subscribe to it, kind of like my repower. If the legislation changes to allow community solar in the next legislative session, then actually Scio or we could partner with someone to develop it. So we'll just see where that goes. And it'd be nice to have a contact for some of these sites that are coming through with some of the 1 megawatt solar farms and that type of thing. So hopefully we can have a better rapport with planning renewables in Scio.
They're taking some hits about this power outages. Why aren't you doing more and more solar?
Why aren't they doing?
And they
underground
admitted that
or-
I just saw something, they admitted that they need to do better with the industry.
Yeah, there was also I don't know if anybody else heard it on NPR, they were giving estimates of what it cost to put power underground, especially in areas that aren't dense. In a dense area, it's like $2,000 to $3,000 a customer, which isn't so
Oh.
bad, but that's in a dense area, not like Scio.
Oh.
Yeah, that's in like a city like. maybe
And
Ann
what does it
Arbor or
cost them to
Denver.
keep on going out and repairing?
Well, that's what they do.
Yep.
You know? Okay, let's see, I think that was it. And then, Road Commission Advisory Committee.
I was ill at my first meeting, so I did not make it. Sorry,
Okay, well,
bad
it's
first
okay.
impression.
All right. All
Larger
right,
better.
LPC, anything on that? John?
No, they went into closed session to talk about something I can't talk about. It's about- No, it's like.
They talked about something.
No, they did something, but I can't talk about
Okay.
It's good that they did that.
it. Yeah.
Parks and Rec,
No such thing.
it's not, it
PPP?
doesn't exist any, I just have to, it's just the PPP and that's Chris, right?
Yes,
I was gonna
Okay.
suggest that we.
What
update
is it
our
now?
reports.
You know what, that was my fault. I did have them updated and I forgot to have them
What's it-
remove the
What's
Parks
it
and
called now?
PPP committee.
I mean,
parks,
parks-
preserves and pathways.
Preserves and pathways. Thank you.
Anything?
We had our first meeting and we elected 2 additional members and we also elected our board members. And I don't think that's the right.
Board of Rep,
Yes.
Board of Trustees Rep.
No,
No, not board of, the commissioners. We have co-chairs.
Okay.
Oh. But
You-
what happened?
well, there's only 9, there's room for 9 people. And they recommended 2 people and the board added those 2 people at the last meeting. And then the land preservation, they submitted a name, Liz Wiseman. And then that would have been, Liz would make 9. Someone will nominated me, but that would make 10 and that's too many. So what I'll endeavor to do is try to get to the meetings and serve as a non-voting liaison, so to speak. I'd rather do that than deprive someone who wants to be on that.
With your new name, I guess this isn't possible. I didn't think about that. But just learned that the Dexter Wellness Center is selling. And I mean, I'm a member and there are many members. It's quite the buzz around the wellness center. And I was hoping that townships could kick in some. That was when I was thinking it was parks and recreation, because it would fit into that mission. But now that it's parks, preserves and pathways, because
Well, recreation is part of the parks.
Okay.
umbrella.
it's something to throw out there. I don't know. I haven't even talked to anybody about it. I haven't talked to anybody at the wellness center, but that is a community resource.
Where's it located?
It's right on
Dexter.
Baker Road.
It's in Dexter City.
In the city.
That's what I was asking.
It's not owned by the city, but they need to kick in. I mean, there could be other people, because there's all the citizens all around the community, even from as far as Chelsea go to the center.
It's a business that they don't have enough members to support the facility.
Oh, they can't, their performance
So-
not working.
Correct. And they have a legal
The what's not
issue,
working?
Pro forma, their business pro forma.
and they have a legal issue that the city of Dexter is suing them, challenging their LLC, charging their
Nonprofit status.
nonprofit status.
So they won their suit from Dexter
Okay.
You know, but it cost them.
We're getting-
regarding the tax.
Cost them a bunch
Okay,
of money.
Huron River Watershed Council.
Okay, don't really have anything to report, except they are asking for volunteers in the community to do chemistry and water flow monitoring. And anybody in our area that wanted to take part, let's see if I can get the dates. I had it here. It is Saturday, March 25th is when they have a virtual program orientation set up. But anybody who wants to take part of that or in that orientation needs to register ahead of time. So you should go to hrwc.org/chemflow, CHEMFLOW, and sign up. Might be fun.
Yeah, both of those in the January, whatever that fly, I forget what it's called. Anyway, all of those volunteer things are really fun and you learn a lot. Right, and is the fire services committee done now
We're
or?
done and we made a recommendation to the board, and that's what John was talking about, what their, part of the discussion is how and how much they want to propose to the public.
Right.
If I can summarize it even shorter than you did.
And I think the other thing with the PPP committee, and this will come up in the Environmental Sustainability Task Force because transportation and mobility is one of the areas, is right now, we really don't have anybody in charge of a holistic kind of approach to transportation, especially the stuff in the right of way. So just knowing that that's sort of a hole we've got. So all those transportation funding kinds of things and
When you say within the right of way, what do you
Yeah.
mean that, like paths?
like
Bike lane?
sidewalks and,
Set paths,
Bikes.
bike lane, okay.
yeah, making sure that, and mass transit, coordinating.
The utilities are in the right of way.
Yeah, we got the utilities covered. This
Talking
would
about
be,
the 66.
Yeah.
and public transit. Okay, I think those are the reports, so we'll move on to minutes.
Didn't I get an opportunity to read the minutes? They're always pretty lengthy, very. So I'm not, do we have to approve those minutes tonight? I know that
Yeah.
kind of holds up the deal.
Yeah, we should, so it can move on, yeah. And if you want to abstain because you haven't read them, that's all right. You can do that.
I will.
Move to approve the minutes.
Support.
No, we have two dates and we can do both of them together because one was a no meeting minute.
I just meant the one that had content.
Okay, well, will you add the ones for the?
Oh, can I move for both?
Yes.
Oh, sure. I'll move to approve both minutes on the agenda.
Support.
Support from Commissioner Reiser. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, yeah, you had an issue.
Yeah, I noticed, I think they had me down for voting no
No.
on one of them, or like, what was it to approve the minutes? I'm fairly sure I voted yes to
Yes,
approve the
approve the
minutes, so there's one in there, I think, what am I on, page 50? It says I voted no.
I thought you voted no on the.
I did vote no on the outdoor storage,
Storage.
but I didn't vote no
On the
on the
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, we'll correct that.
Page 13.
I see that. Yeah, we didn't do a roll call vote for the minutes.
Okay, tonight we will, just because of the extension or possible abstention.
Well, now, do we need to re-motion now? Motion to approve the minutes as amended?
As amended, yes. And friendly amendment,
Yes, I would accept that.
okay? Roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Moore,
Abstain.
all right, Commissioner Reiser,
Aye. Yes.
Commissioner High,
Yes.
Commissioner Human,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Move to adjourn?
Is there support? Okay. All those in favor, please, oh, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 9:20.